Chapter 41. 41, An explanation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 41. An explanation. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Xia Xian believed that no matter what, she needed to explain the situation to Bobo's owner and resolve the issue. So, she dialed Jing Mo's phone number. Hello. Jing Mo's voice was lazy, and there were sounds of destruction from Bobo in the background. Mr. Jing, Xia Xian awkwardly began, feeling like she had done something wrong. Jing Mo responded calmly, his expression unchanged as he looked at Bobo, who was causing a ruckus. Xia Xian gathered her courage and briefly recounted the incident with the baked buns to Jing Mo. I'm sorry for causing misunderstandings among internet users. But I will do my best to cooperate and resolve the issue. Jing Mo remained composed, maintaining his gaze on Bobo. He asked, so, what's your solution? Xia Xian cautiously proposed, this incident will undoubtedly have an impact on you and Bobo. Therefore, I won't accept payment for walking Bobo for the next few days. The solution I can think of for now is to temporarily stop walking Bobo, reducing our joint appearances. At the same time, I'll post a video clarifying that Bobo isn't my dog. Once some time passes and the hype dies down, people will probably forget what Bobo looks like. Jing Mo nodded slightly, though there was a fleeting sense of unexplainable disappointment in his heart. Fortunately, Bobo didn't understand the human language very well, otherwise, if it knew Xia Xian wouldn't be walking it anymore, it would probably cause an even bigger scene. On the same day, Xia Xian released a video explaining that the dog was one she was walking part-time for someone else. This clarification should help internet users understand that the dog belonged to Jing Mo if they found out in the future. The comments from netizens were quite cooperative, and the storm seemed to temporarily calm down. With the Bun Boy incident settled, Xia Xian had only a few days of leisure before more problems arose. The number of visitors at the capital zoo was increasing, and to protect the animals, each enclosure had limited the number of visitors. The panda exhibit, in particular, would sell out almost immediately upon ticket availability, making it even harder to get than concert tickets. Whether it was Xia Xian's imagination or a woman's intuition, she felt that many visitors weren't there to see the pandas but to see her. It wasn't just the panda exhibit, other areas where Xia Xian usually helped out were also overcrowded, and she could often spot familiar faces among the front-row crowd. However, Xia Xian didn't think about these people as obsessive fans. She sensed that their gazes upon her were akin to assessing a commodity, filled with scrutiny, valuation, and greed for money. It didn't seem like the gaze of obsessed fans, but it still made Xia Xian quite uncomfortable. It wasn't until someone handed Xia Xian various business cards when she finished work that she realized those individuals were talent agents from agencies that nurtured online celebrities. Due to Xia Xian's growing online presence, her independently operated amateur account naturally attracted the attention of talent agencies. But in this life, Xia Xian only wanted to be an ordinary person, to lead a simple and unremarkable life. So she declined all offers, except for one agent who had connections with Zhao Nan, and she agreed to have a meal with them. During dinner, the influencer talent agent Zhou Tian handed Xia Xian a business card and started introducing the agency, discussing the value of Xia Xian's account. The dinner started to feel more like an interview, causing Xia Xian to lose her appetite. Zhou Tian saw Xia Xian was even more vibrant and lively in person than she appeared in her videos. He was convinced that he had discovered a potential star. Xia Xian would undoubtedly be a dark horse overtaking others on the track of streaming platforms. Speaking in an encouraging tone, Zhou Tian expressed the agency's intention to collaborate with Xia Xian. He even showed Xia Xian the account of the owner of the baked bun stall. Xia Xian was surprised to find that the shop owner's account had gained tens of thousands of followers, and there were numerous videos of people queuing up to buy baked buns. The once unremarkable baked bun stall that never had queues had now become a trendy spot and was even ranked second on the list of must-try baked buns in the capital. All of this was thanks to the dividends from Xia Xian's account. Xia Xian fell silent, not expecting to have such influence one day. Although the income from being an online celebrity was substantial and tempting, Xia Xian still preferred her work at the zoo, where she could interact with animals genuinely. It felt more valuable to her than mechanically earning money. Chapter 42. 42, Escalation of Contradictions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 42. Escalation of Contradictions. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Xia Xian simply wanted to do what she loved for work, spend more time with her parents, and so she politely declined the enticing offer from Zhou Tian. Disappointed, Zhou Tian settled the bill and left. Throughout dinner, Zhao Nan hardly said a word, her lack of enthusiasm evident as she listened to Zhou Tian and Xia Xian's conversation. Xia Xian had thrown countless inquiring glances at her, but it seemed like Zhao Nan hadn't noticed at all. This left Xia Xian feeling somewhat disheartened. Zhao Nan was her best friend from university, and she didn't want their relationship to be affected by some jerk. Xia Xian decided to address the issue directly. Nan, you've been responding to my messages less lately. Is there some misunderstanding? Zhao Nan hesitated, eventually let out a long sigh, and said, Xia Xian, you're a social media influencer now. We're different. Xia Xian was taken aback, and it felt odd hearing her call her by her full name after becoming such close friends. Before she could inquire further, Zhao Nan's phone rang. It was Zhang Liang saying he was coming to pick them up. Hearing Zhang Liang's name made Xia Xian feel nauseated. Outside the restaurant, Zhang Liang waited for Xia Xian and Zhao Nan with a carefree smile, acting as if nothing had happened before. Xia Xian gave Zhang Liang a cold stare, standing on the side of the road, waiting for a taxi. Surprisingly, Zhang Liang came over, hugging Zhao Nan, and provocatively said to Xia Xian, we'll give you a ride home. Xia Xian couldn't be bothered to look at him, kept her head down, and replied with undisguised annoyance, no thanks. My taxi is about to arrive. However, it was the peak of rush hour, and taxis were nearly impossible to find. Feeling that Xia Xian wasn't treating her boyfriend well, Zhao Nan felt a bit upset. Unable to hold back anymore, she said, Xia Xian, I know you've never approved of Zhang Liang and me dating. I've been trying to accommodate your feelings and rarely mention him in front of you. But even after all that, you're still unsatisfied. A few days ago, he helped me give you a gift, and you let your dog bite him. You've gone too far. Now that you're an influencer, you want to stop being friends with me, right? Xia Xian was surprised and unintentionally ignored the last sentence. Zhang Liang had actually twisted the truth, making her look bad instead. Turns out, on that day, Zhang Liang had suddenly appeared outside my apartment. He had somehow managed to get my address from Zhao Nan. Disgusting. Xia Xian thought. Xia Xian began explaining, Zhao Nan, you've misunderstood, but then stopped abruptly. If she revealed what happened that night, Zhao Nan would definitely be heartbroken. Zhang Liang wrapped his arm around Zhao Nan, looking at Xia Xian provocatively, baby, don't get angry. People change over time. We don't need to be petty anymore. Hearing those words, tears welled up in Zhao Nan's eyes. She was more upset that Xia Xian had become popular and was drifting away from her. Furious, Xia Xian clenched her fists, unable to find words to say. If Zhao Nan weren't there, she would have wanted to give Zhang Liang a shoulder throw right then and there, while also contemplating how to explain things to Zhao Nan. Suddenly, a discreet black Jeep Wrangler stopped in front of them. Everyone looked at the car, and the rear window slowly rolled down. A chubby head eagerly emerged, two front paws resting on the window sill. Bobo excitedly barked, Xia Xian, pet me. Xia Xian was taken aback for a moment. The driver should be Jing Mo. Seeing Bobo happy, Xia Xian walked over and rubbed its head. Jing Mo's lazy voice came from inside the car, "Need any help?" Xia Xian turned around, seeing Zhao Nan who didn't want to look at her, and Zhang Liang who looked smug. She nodded and got into the back seat. Before getting into the car, she said to Zhao Nan, "Nan, I know you have misunderstandings. I'll come find you in a few days and explain everything." Zhang Liang's gaze turned sinister, and he clenched his teeth with jealousy. He deliberately added fuel to the fire. "Look, even when she's out, she gets picked up in a luxury car. She probably looks down on you, her poor friend." Xia Xian glared at Zhang Liang fiercely, while Bobo barked at him from her lap. Zhang Liang was frightened and instinctively touched the wound on his leg, the pain of being bitten resurfacing. Zhao Nan cried even harder in his embrace. The Jeep Wrangler weaved through traffic, heading in the direction of Xia Xian's home. As Xia Xian petted Bobo for a while, her mood gradually improved. Bobo complained, "Xia Xian, did you bring that dog with a disability of yours out to play instead of me these days?" Chapter 43. 43, Another Wave of Controversy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 43. Another Wave of Controversy. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Xia Xian pretended to be angry and warned Bobo, "Lail is a good dog. If you keep treating him like an enemy, I'll get mad." Because Jing Mo was in the car, Xia Xian didn't use the beast language system. Bobo didn't fully understand, but from Xia Xian's expression, it could tell she was warning it, causing Bobo to whimper softly in protest. Jing Mo was amused, "I didn't expect you to be so childlike. You can reason with a husky too." Xia Xian playfully stuck out her tongue. Of course, it was because she communicated with animals without barriers. She scratched Bobo's chin, continuing to play with him. For the rest of the journey, the three of them communicated without words. Later that night, Xia Xian updated another statement, explaining that she just wanted to be an animal caretaker and had no plans to sign up with a company. She hoped that influencer agents wouldn't occupy public resources, leaving the space for genuine visitors to the zoo. Within 10 minutes of Xia Xian's video release, thousands of comments were ignited. Almost half of the comments criticized the difficulty of getting tickets to the zoo. People hadn't seen the three pandas for a long time, and Xia Xian's videos were their only way to alleviate their longing. The remaining comments sparked arguments. Someone commented, "Another innocent acting character who's claiming not to want money, not to be a social media influencer. Isn't she just aiming to enter the entertainment industry in the future?" A rebuttal followed, "She simply loves animals. Don't judge her intentions with your own pettiness." Amidst this debate, within an hour, Xia Xian was once again propelled to the second spot on the trending list. The first trend was an official notification about Jing Mo's nomination for the Golden Jade Award for Best Actor. Sun Hu was leading his army of online supporters in manipulating comments. He clicked on the sudden rise of the second trend out of boredom and, after looking it over, smirked with the air of someone enjoying a spectacle. He handed the tablet to Jing Mo, who was sitting beside him, deep in thought about what food to feed Bobo. While Jing Mo browsed the comments with a furrowed brow, Sun Hu leaned back on the sofa with his hands behind his head, saying, "This woman isn't simple at all. I'm familiar with this kind of strategy. It won't take 2 days for her to enter the entertainment circle, then take on a bunch of low-budget web dramas and variety shows. Her fame won't last long. I wonder which company is pulling the strings behind her." Jing Mo's hand stopped in the middle of scrolling, but it was an unconscious action. He had already shifted his thoughts elsewhere. Sun Hu had long grown accustomed to Jing Mo's absent-minded state and continued, "I thought she was just an innocent girl. I was happy that you were finally dating after all these years of being your friend, but it turns out she's just another opportunist. This young lady is quite calculating. Jing Mot's hand paused for a moment. He said calmly, she's not that kind of person. He then used his slender fingers to rub his slightly throbbing temple, his gaze carrying a threat as he looked at Bobo. I'll ask you again, are you going to eat or not? Bobo, who had been ignoring premium dog food for days, raised its proud head stubbornly. As if it was saying no. The news of Xia Xian trending again spread throughout the zoo. Many staff members whispered and pointed at her back as she passed by, making her feel uncomfortable. She couldn't care less about this trend. However, what surprised her, even more, was that the next trending topic arrived so quickly, and it shot straight to the top. The advertisement for Trymere had been released. The title closely followed the trending topic, Forest Princess Dances with a Snake. With the combination of video views and paid advertising, the topic reached the top of the trends list within 30 minutes, effortlessly surging to the #1 spot. This advertisement was a direct slap to Xia Xian's face. Her once supportive online community was left dumbfounded. They accused her of hypocrisy and ridiculed her for enjoying video profits while rejecting the identity of a social media influencer, branding her as a scheming girl who wanted to enter the entertainment industry. Xia Xian had initially admired the advertisement for its grandeur. The Trymere's mascot was cute and endearing. It even defied the nature of snakes by being clingy and adorable. But as soon as Xia Xian looked at the comments section, she was stunned. For Xia Xian, once the advertisement was shot and the money was in her pocket, it was unrelated to her. She hadn't thought about these aspects while filming and only wanted to avoid using public resources. Unexpectedly, logical-minded netizens had used this as a weapon to attack her. In the past, Xia Xian would have felt upset and embroiled in a war of words when seeing such negative comments and accounts already drowning in insults. But now, she remained calmer and focused on finding solutions. With no public relations experience, Xia Xian was concerned that explaining too much might create more confusion. So, she decided not to respond for the time being. Chapter 44. 44. Adding insult to injury. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 44. Adding insult to injury. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. However, just as Xia Xian shut down her computer, she heard the system's alert tone in her mind. Warning. The system detected abnormalities, affinity level continuously decreased. Xia Xian was startled. She immediately opened the system interface and discovered that her remaining affinity points, which were already quite low, were steadily decreasing and approaching zero. It turned out that affinity points could not only increase but also decrease. If online discussions continued like that, Xia Xian might even end up with negative affinity points. Xia Xian's mood was finally affected. She had no idea whatsoever how to solve it. She didn't follow celebrities or trending topics, and she knew nothing about public relations. Animals have the keenest sense, and Lael might have sensed Xia Xian's distress. He came over, rubbing his furry head against her ankle, and Xia Xian held him in her arms. After half a month of careful care by Xia Xian, Lael's wounds had healed, and his fur was getting shinier. Except for his tongue, Lael was hardly distinguishable from a normal dog anymore. However, Xia Xian hadn't noticed that something new was quietly growing at the base of Lael's tongue. The impact of this incident was enormous and even reached the zoo. Initially, people said that Xia Xian had used connections to get into the zoo, but now the situation had escalated, reaching the director's office. Lu Yuan was left with no choice but to temporarily suspend Xia Xian's activities throughout the zoo, confining her to the panda exhibit. Lu Yuan earnestly told Xia Xian, your image represents the entire capital zoo. Keeping you at the panda exhibit is the only solution. Xia Xian expressed her understanding, but she still felt regretful. Upgrading the system to level 2 required 500 affinity points from 49 different animals. Now, with only one animal left, she had lost the opportunity to learn from various areas of the zoo. 2 days passed like that, and the situation hadn't calmed down. Although Xia Xian had stepped away from the trending topics, discussions were still ongoing on various social media platforms. There was even a poll online speculating about when Xia Xian would announce her entry into the entertainment industry. Xia Xian's popularity remained high, but her affinity points continued to steadily decrease, stabilizing at 0. Looking at the red text, she could only sigh helplessly. The most immediate effect of this incident was that Xia Xian was no longer as busy as before. She left work on time every day and had nowhere else to go, so she returned home early. Xia Xian had tried to invite Zhao Nan over to her place for a gathering, but Zhao Nan declined each time. Consequently, Xia Xian's activities to pass the time became walking her dog. With the increasing popularity of a nearby baked bun stall, more and more tourists came to the neighborhood. As a result, Xia Xian's dog-walking territory was confined to the apartment complex. Another person affected by this change was Jing Mo, who also needed to walk his dog. In the garden of the complex, Xia Xian sat bored, watching Leo rolling around in the grass. Suddenly, she heard a familiar bark. Turning her head, she saw a beautifully fur-coated large dog leaping at her, knocking her onto the grass. Bobo excitedly licked Xia Xian's cheek, continually saying, "Xia Xian, it's been so long since you walked me. Take me to eat baked buns." Jing Mo tried to pull Bobo back but with little effect. He could only struggle to hold the leash and pull Bobo away from Xia Xian, then helped her up and apologized. Xia Xian said, "It's okay. Bobo probably hasn't seen me in a while, so he's excited." Both of them sat on the grass, watching Bobo and Leo play, without much communication. After a while, Jing Mo finally couldn't stand it anymore and asked, "Are you bothered by the comments from netizens?" Embarrassed, Xia Xian crookedly smiled. She had a habit of unconsciously sighing when she was annoyed. Thinking that she had no idea how to handle this, Xia Xian decided to ask Jing Mo for advice. He was a big star, so he surely had experience in handling public relations. So, after briefly explaining the online comments on her video, Xia Xian asked Jing Mo how to deal with them. Jing Mo asked her in return, "Do you really not want to enter the entertainment industry?" Xia Xian candidly shook her head. Jing Mo said calmly, "Your popularity is high now, and discussions about you even exceed that of many celebrities. You've already been exposed to the public eye, and it's hard to return to the quiet life of a zookeeper. I've seen the ads you've done. You're camera-friendly and have a screen presence. You have all around advantages. I'd say you're naturally suited for a career in showbiz. You might want to consider entering the entertainment industry." Chapter 45. 45, Snub-Nosed Monkey. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 45. Snub-Nosed Monkey. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Xia Xian was somewhat convinced by Jing Mo's words. Jing Mo had just been nominated for the Best Actor award in the prestigious Golden Jade Awards. If even a star of his caliber said she was suited for the entertainment industry, she could really give it a try. Previously, Xia Xian had declined to sign with a talent agency to avoid overwhelming busyness. But now, she found herself at the center of public opinion, and evading it seemed futile. However, Xia Xian still felt that the entertainment industry was far from her grasp. Still, she thanked Jing Mo and said she would carefully consider his suggestion. The day after their conversation, a new addition arrived at the zoo, a snub-nosed monkey. Snub-nosed monkeys were a nationally protected species, and the capital zoo had never been granted permission to keep them. This particular monkey had been sent from another city's zoo because they were unable to care for it. That snub-nosed monkey had suffered from bullying within its troop, bearing numerous injuries. It was also significantly smaller in size and had been diagnosed with depression by the zoo's veterinarians. Thus, it had to be kept separately. Arriving at the capital zoo, it was very fearful of the unfamiliar environment, and any unfamiliar objects triggered its alertness. It was wary of any actions taken by the zookeepers, even refusing to eat or drink and locking itself in its cage. Lu Yuan was deeply concerned, and nearly every zookeeper in the zoo had tried to get the snub-nosed monkey to eat, but none could make it drop its guard and consume anything. As a last resort, Lu Yuan sent the zoo's image ambassador, Xia Xian, to handle the situation. With Xia Xian's passive skill in the beast language system, the snub-nosed monkey hesitantly ate the food she offered, though it remained guarded around her. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Lu Yuan handed over the responsibility of feeding the snub-nosed monkey to Xia Xian. However, after a few days of feeding, Xia Xian noticed that the snub-nosed monkey didn't become any more comfortable around her. It remained as cautious as it was on the first day, only eating the food she provided and resisting her touch. Xia Xian attempted to apply medication to the snub-nosed monkey, but it always evaded her efforts, which left her feeling heartbroken. So, Xia Xian came up with the idea, could introducing the snub-nosed monkey to other animals help with its depression? The gentlest animals at the zoo were, of course, the giant pandas. However, Xia Xian quickly dismissed the idea. Pandas were significantly larger than the snub-nosed monkey, and having one near it would likely only increase its fear. Just as Xia Xian was pondering, she suddenly thought of Lael. Lael was very intelligent and emotionally sensitive. Having once suffered from self-esteem issues itself, Lael might be able to understand the snub-nosed monkey's feelings. That afternoon, Xia Xian brought Lael to the zoo to introduce the two animals. Placing Lael outside the cage, Xia Xian hid in the distance to observe. Initially, the snub-nosed monkey merely watched Lael from a corner. Lael, on the other hand, played with the little ball Xia Xian had brought for it. After about an hour, the snub-nosed monkey tentatively reached out its hand through the bars, touching Lael's rear. Seeing no reaction from Lael, it increased its force and touched Lael's hind leg. When Lael turned around, the snub-nosed monkey timidly looked at it. Encouraged by Lael, the snub-nosed monkey finally left its cage. Another hour later, the snub-nosed monkey was playing boldly with Lael and even used its arms to embrace Lael's neck. That night, the snub-nosed monkey's appetite was noticeably better. Over the next few days, Xia Xian brought Lael to the zoo to accompany the snub-nosed monkey. The snub-nosed monkey's mood visibly improved, and it could now play with Lael in front of Xia Xian. After another couple of days, with the help of her passive beast language system, the snub-nosed monkey finally stopped resisting Xia Xian's touch. It even opened its arms in response to her attempts to hold it, gazing at her with a bewildered expression. Perhaps because the snub-nosed monkey hadn't fully accepted Xia Xian yet, its affinity points increased very slowly. After all these days, her affinity points with it were only at 200. However, Xia Xian remained patient and took good care of the snub-nosed monkey. Another week passed, and the veterinarian examined the snub-nosed monkey once again. He was amazed to find that the snub-nosed monkey's mental health had significantly improved, to the point where it could leave its cage. Lu Yuan set up a special enclosure for the snub-nosed monkey, and the only caretaker for it was Xia Xian. Under Xia Xian's care, the snub-nosed monkey grew more cheerful. It even peeled bananas and handed them to Xia Xian to eat. Chapter 46. 46. Shooting a variety show. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 46. Shooting a variety show. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Due to the psychological issues of the snub-nosed monkey, Xia Xian had been hesitant to use the beast language system to communicate with it, fearing it might scare the monkey. Now, she finally felt ready to give it a try. Little monkey, don't be afraid. In this enclosure, you're the only monkey, and nobody will bully you. If you want anything, just let me know, said Xia Xian. The snub-nosed monkey was surprised, but it was clever and quickly accepted that Xia Xian could communicate with it. As a result, it became closer to her, which made other keepers quite envious. After the snub-nosed monkey's condition improved significantly, it started getting used to visitors, so Lu Yuan decided to open up exhibition tickets for the snub-nosed monkey's enclosure. The capital zoo became even more crowded. Xia Xian named the snub-nosed monkey, Slowpoke, because it took a long time for it to adapt to the environment after arriving at the zoo, slower than other animals. On this day, just after Xia Xian had finished feeding Slowpoke and was about to finish her work for the day, Lu Yuan suddenly called her into his office. Given that the last 2 times Xia Xian went to Lu Yuan's office, nothing good had happened, she felt a bit nervous on her way there. In the office, besides Lu Yuan, there were 2 middle-aged men that Xia Xian didn't recognize at all. Lu Yuan introduced them as the director, Sun Tao, and the assistant director of a variety show. The theme of the show was centered around animals, so they wanted to use the capital zoo as a frequent shooting location. Since the snub-nosed monkey had recently gained a lot of popularity, Sun Tao intended to feature it in the first episode of the show. Because Slowpoke wouldn't let anyone except Xia Xian approach it, Sun Tao hoped she could be the technical advisor and appear on screen in the first episode. After listening to the director's explanation, Xia Xian hesitated a bit. She looked at Lu Yuan and said, "Mr. Lu, it's a good thing to use a variety show to encourage people to get closer to animals. However, our zoo is always packed with visitors, and I'm afraid we don't have time available for the crew to shoot." Sun Tao reassured her, "Miss Xia, you don't need to worry about this. We've already considered it. Each filming session will only take up 1 day and 1 enclosure. It won't affect the regular visitors. Furthermore, we'll only allow 80 audience members for each episode, which is even fewer than the usual visitors. It won't disturb the animals." Since Xia Xian always prioritized the well-being of the animals, with this concern resolved, she was more than willing to cooperate. Next, they discussed the filming schedule in detail and the main content of the first episode. The assistant director gave Xia Xian a rough script for her to familiarize herself with the flow in advance. As Xia Xian looked at the script, she noticed that the guests for the first episode were the popular male celebrity Su Ji and the female idol group member Wan Wan. Xia Xian's eyes lit up at the mention of Su Ji's name. He was a university mate, 2 years younger than her. He had been scouted by talent agents and had been in the entertainment industry for 2 years. Ever since Su Ji debuted, Zhao Nan had been a fan of his. Xia Xian hadn't expected him to be a guest on this show. She had to secure a ticket for Zhao Nan. Xia Xian asked the director, "Mr. Sun, can I have 1 ticket to the live recording of the first episode? I'm willing to give up my fee for this episode in exchange for the ticket." Supporting celebrities was a normal thing, and this kind of effect was precisely what Sun Tao wanted. So, he readily agreed. On their way back, the assistant director said to Sun Tao, "Mr. Sun, that girl from today is Xia Xian, a popular zookeeper recently. She really is beautiful and seems suitable for entering the entertainment industry." Sun Tao had been busy writing the script for the variety show and hadn't paid much attention to current trends. Hearing the assistant director's words, he immediately started thinking, since she's gaining popularity, we can use her for publicity. It will definitely help increase the discussion around our first episode. Just as they were discussing that, Sun Tao's phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, he signaled to the assistant director to stay quiet. After answering the call, Sun Tao adopted a somewhat flattering tone, "Mr. Sun, the great busy manager, it's nice to finally get a call from you." On the other end of the line, Sun, whose voice was courteous, "Mr. Sun, I apologize. It's just that Jing Mo's schedule has been packed lately. That's why I haven't been able to get back to you. I can confirm a time for the recording day and give you an hour for shooting. However, I want to make it clear that we'll only appear as special guests for one segment and then leave. Sun Tao didn't mind how long Jing Mo would appear on the screen. As long as he showed up in the first episode, the variety show's impact would be maximized. The show had just started, and the investors would assess its performance during the first season before deciding whether to continue their investment. Regardless, Sun Tao was determined to make the first episode as engaging as possible. Chapter 47. 47, System Upgrade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 47. System Upgrade. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. On the other hand, Xia Xin happily saved the e-ticket in her phone and headed home, thinking that with this opportunity, she could soon reconcile with Zhao Nan. Unable to wait until she got home, Xia Xin immediately called Zhao Nan and informed her of the situation. Zhao Nan's attitude was awkward. At the beginning of the call, her tone was very cold and dismissive, but when she heard that she could see Su Ji in person, she couldn't keep up the act anymore and exclaimed excitedly. Xia Xin emphasized that she only had one ticket, and she didn't want her hard-earned labor to come cheap for Zhao Nan. But at this point, Zhao Nan didn't even care about getting things cheap. She readily agreed. Xia Xin chuckled. She knew Zhao Nan well. She knew that Zhao Nan couldn't resist the temptation of Su Ji. When she met Zhao Nan that day, she would explain everything clearly to her. After returning home, Xia Xin calculated that the affinity she had gained from the snub-nosed monkey over the past 2 days should be around 500 points. So, she opened the system interface in her mind, and the system notification sounded. Upgrade conditions have been met. Do you want to upgrade? Of course, I want to upgrade. Xia Xin said excitedly. Then, a circle of white light illuminated Xia Xin's surroundings, enveloping her in the middle. The intense light momentarily blinded her. When Xia Xin could finally see the system interface again, her level had changed to a level 2 beast tamer. She also noticed a new attribute, reflex. However, the starting value was only 5 points. What is this? I wonder if reflex was like stamina, making me more agile in my actions. But why was it listed separately? Xia Xin pondered. She tried to increase the attribute but failed. Warning. Adding 1 point of reflex requires 2000 affinity points with animals. That's a lot. Xia Xin exclaimed. For other attributes, adding 1 point required only 1000 affinity points after reaching 80 points. Yet, this attribute required 2000 for just 1 point. Xia Xin felt that it was absurd. Since Xia Xin had just upgraded her beast language system, the affinity points with animals had already reset to 0. So, she didn't dwell on increasing the attribute. Instead, she checked for any other changes after the upgrade. Xia Xin noticed her passive skill had been upgraded. Previously, it only made animals have affection towards her, but now, there was an additional ability. She could command young animals to perform actions. It was easy to understand since insects were considered young animals. With that passive skill, Xia Xin could even make ants dance on chopsticks, which seemed pretty interesting. Xia Xin was also still concerned about curing Lael's tongue. The system had stated that it could be done after reaching level 3, so she was eager to see what the conditions were for the next level upgrade. However, the interface was blank. Xia Xin was taken aback and asked, "System, why is it blank? Does that mean I can't upgrade anymore?" Just as Xia Xin said that, the word, unknown, appeared on the system interface. The task for the upgrade of the beast language system is determined based on the owner's capabilities. The system is currently evaluating these capabilities, so the information cannot be accessed temporarily. Suddenly, Xia Xian had a thought. If the system was so personalized, then the 49 animals required for her to reach level 2 might have been chosen due to her job at the zoo. If she changed her job, the tasks would probably be completely different. Without dwelling on it too much, Xia Xian ruffled Lao's head and went to sleep. The first filming session was scheduled for 3 days later. The crew had already started promoting it, and the tickets released were snatched up within half a minute. The zoo also sent out a notice. On the day of the variety show filming, the snub-nosed monkey's enclosure would be closed. On that day, Xia Xian was worried that a large crowd might scare Slowpoke, so she arrived at the enclosure very early to prepare. Recently, Xia Xian noticed that after the upgrade of the beast language system, animals not only developed affection towards her but also became clingy. The benefit made it much easier for her to accumulate affinity points with animals, and she had already accumulated 3,000 points. Driven by curiosity, Xia Xian had increased her reflex slightly the previous night, causing her affinity points with animals to drop to 1,000 points. She felt a bit sorry for it. However, up until now, Xia Xian still didn't know the exact purpose of the reflex attribute. The assistant director was worried that Xia Xian might make mistakes during her first time filming a variety show. So, before shooting began, he came to confirm the details with her once again. Miss Xia, during the filming of the variety show this time, the snub-nosed monkey won't need to appear in many scenes. You just need to follow our instructions. When you receive our signal, bring Slowpoke onto the stage. The entire interaction segment will take about an hour. Chapter 48. 48, Familiar Acquaintance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 48. Familiar Acquaintance. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. After the assistant director left, Xia Xian glanced toward the audience seats, checking for Zhao Nan's presence before heading backstage with a sense of relief. Due to the large crowd today, Xia Xian was concerned about Slowpoke's mood, so she brought Lao along to accompany it. When Xia Xian found a moment to rest backstage, she realized that the backstage area was quite small. Su Ji and Wan Wan were getting their makeup done, with their manager explaining the script beside them. The backstage space felt quite crowded. Xia Xian was wearing the zoo staff uniform. On stage, she would wear a cap and mask, so there was no need for makeup. It was August, and the weather was too hot. Only backstage had air conditioning, so Xia Xian took the opportunity to cool down for a while. When she grew a bit bored, Xia Xian closed her eyes to relax. Suddenly, she sensed a shadow before her. Curious, Xia Xian wondered if her seating position was bothering someone in the dressing room, as she didn't expect anyone here to recognize her. Quickly, she opened her eyes and shifted slightly to the side. The person approached her again, and Xia Xian finally recognized him as Su Ji. Curious, Xia Xian asked, "Is there something you need?" Su Ji smiled at her, revealing a row of bright white teeth. His main selling point was his youthful appearance, and his smile truly matched the image of a young person that people had in mind. Calling out to Xia Xian, Su Ji said, "Hello, Xia Xian." Indeed, Xia Xian was Su Ji's senior, but considering that he had barely been on campus due to being scouted by talent agents early on, she wondered how he could recognize her. Seeing the puzzled look on Xia Xian's face, Su Ji looked a bit disappointed. He said, "It seems you've forgotten about me." Xia Xian still looked puzzled. Su Ji explained, "At the beginning of the semester, you and Zhao Nan helped me move my luggage. Don't you remember?" Xia Xian pondered carefully, and indeed, there seemed to be such a thing. Back then, she and Zhao Nan had helped a male student move his belongings at the freshman registration area. However, they had only helped him because he was very good looking. But Xia Xian didn't expect his luggage to be so heavy and numerous. The boys' dormitory was on the 6th floor with no elevator. They had run up and down 3 times before finishing. Her back and waist ached for a whole week afterward. At that time, Xia Xian and Zhao Nan vowed never to judge people by their looks again. However, that determination was about as believable as saying, "I won't have midnight snacks anymore." It was such a coincidence that the idol Zhao Nan liked turned out to be the younger student they had helped. BDNVL.M. But when Xia Xian thought about how Su Ji had caused their backs to hurt for a whole week, she found it hard to put on a good face. Fortunately, the assistant director urged them to start filming, so Xia Xian didn't need to engage in small talk with Su Ji. Before leaving, Su Ji even made a point to say, "Xia Xian, after recording the show tonight, please join me for dinner. You must wait for me." Xia Xian thought that she could enjoy a free meal and have Zhao Nan and her idol sit at the same table. That was indeed quite nice. Since everyone was now out recording the show, the backstage was empty except for Xia Xian. So, she brought Lael and Slowpoke backstage to enjoy the air conditioning. Amid this sweltering summer, only air conditioning could bring true happiness. Feeling comfortable, Xia Xian lay back on the sofa and drifted off to sleep again. Half asleep and half awake, she once again saw a shadow. Xia Xian thought to herself, "Why does Su Ji always seem to appear when I'm closing my eyes and resting?" Unwillingly, Xia Xian opened her eyes and was met with the handsome and aloof face of Jing Mo. Xia Xian immediately woke up. She thought, why hadn't the director informed her that Jing Mo would also be participating in this episode? "You're also here to record the show?" Xia Xian felt that her question was quite silly. If Jing Mo wasn't here to record, he wouldn't be backstage. What was even stranger was that Xia Xian felt a bit nervous. Xia Xian thought that it might be due to just waking up. She adjusted her mood, sat up, and made space for Jing Mo to sit. As Jing Mo watched Lael and Slowpoke playing, he suddenly asked, "What should I do if my dog is a picky eater?" Ah! Xia Xian realized he was talking about Bobo. But when Xia Xian walked Bobo, it ate everything, even baked buns. She couldn't help but wonder if Bobo was simply not interested in the food Jing Mo offered. However, Xia Xian only considered it without daring to say it out loud. She said, "It might be throwing a tantrum. Huskies can be stubborn. You'll have to coax it." Jing Mo fell silent and thought, maybe I should just let that rebellious boy go hungry for a couple of days. Chapter 49. 49, An Accident. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 49. An Accident. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The interactive segment with Slowpoke's appearance was quite simple. It only required following Xia Xian's directions to shake hands and pat heads with the 2 guests. The segment concluded with a video of Slowpoke climbing and playing on the rockery. However, due to it being the first episode and the enthusiastic response from the audience, the director added an impromptu segment. A lucky audience member would be selected to join the guests in a game. Jing Mo would also participate in this segment. The game was straightforward. The 4 participants would be divided into 2 teams, and they needed to search for bananas hidden within obstacles around the rockery. The team that found a banana and fed it to Slowpoke would win the game. Jing Mo had already prepared his appearance when he arrived, so he didn't need any makeup. When the assistant director called them, they could go on stage directly. Xia Xian wore her mask and cap. The assistant director glanced at her outfit and stopped her from putting on the mask. He said, "Wearing a mask and cap on screen doesn't look very appealing. Just don't wear the mask, and we'll give you fewer close-up shots later." Obeying, Xia Xian removed her mask and interacted with Slowpoke and the guests before proceeding to the designated area on the rockery to play. The next segment involved selecting an audience member. Today, Su Ji was tasked with selecting the lucky audience member. He scanned the audience area and naturally spotted Zhao Nan, who had helped him move his luggage. So, he chose Zhao Nan to come on stage. Zhao Nan was still unaware of the reason and was pleasantly surprised, thinking that today was her lucky day. For the game, Su Ji and Zhao Nan were on one team, while Wan Wan and Jing Mo were on the other. The production team had hidden 5 boxes around the rockery, with only one containing a banana. The outcome of the game would determine which box each team chose based on their performance. The teams would then take the keys to open the boxes and check for bananas. This part was scripted, and the box containing the banana would naturally be the last one discovered, while the outcome of the game was randomized. The first game involved a male guest carrying a female guest while navigating a pressure-sensitive path. The first to reach the finish line would win. Su Ji lowered his body so that Zhao Nan could climb onto his back. Zhao Nan hesitated, looking at Su Ji's broad back. Recently, due to her bad mood, Zhao Nan turned her frustrations into an appetite and gained 2.5 kilograms. She was worried that if she were to lay on her idol's back, he would surely find her heavy. Seeing Zhao Nan's hesitation, Su Ji turned around and smiled innocently at her. He said, "Don't worry. I exercise regularly and have a lot of strength. Besides, you're not overweight at all. Come on up." Zhao Nan heard only the reassurance that she wasn't overweight and completely ignored her thoughts. She climbed onto Su Ji's back happily and even developed a crush on him. She loved the appearance of this young man. Su Ji carried Zhao Nan on his back across the pressure-sensitive path, moving lightly as if it were nothing, and easily won the game. The production team handed them 5 keys to choose from. They selected the box near Xia Xian and Slowpoke. Following the assistant director's instructions, the 2 of them entered the rockery, took out the key, and prepared to open the box. Since Xia Xian was very close to them, she was afraid of being caught by the camera and criticized by netizens, so she kept her back turned on them. As Su Ji and Zhao Nan began to open the box, Xia Xian suddenly had a bad feeling. It was as if she heard a strange sound, like something breaking. Acting on her intuition, she looked up and saw a large stone on top of the rockery losing its support and swaying dangerously. "Watch out!" Xia Xian exclaimed, not hesitating for a moment. She rushed over to pull Su Ji and Zhao Nan away. Just after Xia Xian had moved them, the stone fell, smashing into several pieces where they had just been standing. Flying fragments narrowly missed Slowpoke. If Xia Xian hadn't moved, the fragments might have hit her directly in the back. When Xia Xian pulled Su Ji and Zhao Nan away, she slipped on the debris on the ground and her arms were scraped. After getting hurt, Xia Xian's initial reaction wasn't to check her own injuries but to stand up and look at Slowpoke, whom she had ignored a moment ago. Xia Xian searched around for its figure and finally saw the trembling Slowpoke hiding in a crack between rocks. She quickly embraced Slowpoke, comforting it in her arms, and said, "It's okay, don't be afraid." Slowpoke clung to Xia Xian's arm tightly and didn't let go. It was clear that the latter part of the show couldn't be recorded. At this point, other zoo staff rushed over to deal with the accident. Chapter 50. 50. Bandaging the wound. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 50. Bandaging the wound. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The director paused the shooting, and everyone gathered around, including Jing Mo, who also walked over immediately. He gently lifted Xia Xian's arm with his fingers and said, "You're injured." Xia Xian was momentarily stunned, only then did she notice that blood droplets had started to emerge from the wound on her arm. There were fragments of gravel, dust, and blood on her entire arm, making it look quite severe. Having been focused on taking care of Slowpoke, Xia Xian hadn't felt the pain. But now, seeing the extensive wound, she suddenly felt the pain. She frowned and smiled at everyone. She said, "It's okay. You guys continue with the show. I'll go tend to my wound. With that, Xia Xian carried Slowpoke and left. Jing Yamo checked the time. An hour had passed, and he had to make it to the next set. He bid farewell to the director and the crew. Before leaving, Jing Yamo glanced in the direction Xia Xian had gone. She was probably going backstage to find some iodine to treat her wound. However, the backstage area only had makeup and filming equipment, there was nothing else. So, he asked Sun Hu to invite Xia Xian over. Miss Xia, we meet again. Sun Hu caught up with Xia Xian at the entrance of the backstage makeup room and greeted her. Xia Xian looked at Sun Hu, carefully recalling before recognizing him as Jing Mo's manager. She replied, "Hello." Sun Hu said, "They don't have gauze or adhesive bandages backstage, but we have some in our car. If you don't mind, you can come with me to the car to treat your wound." Jing Yamo is in the car. Blood was flowing more as time passed, and with no supplies to treat it, Xia Xian could only use tissues to lightly wipe the wound. It was becoming more painful. So, she nodded in agreement. Xia Xian brought Slowpoke backstage and placed it in its cage, having Lail accompany it. Then she followed Sun Hu to the parking lot. Jing Yamo had prepared a first aid kit. He began by using mineral water to clean the dust from the wound. When the cold water touched the wound on her arm, Xia Xian shivered in pain, but she quickly adapted to the sensation. It even seemed less painful. Next, Jing Yamo used a cotton swab to apply iodine for disinfection. Seeing Xia Xian's slightly grimacing expression as she endured the pain, he smiled and tried to divert her attention. He praised, "You were very brave today." L.RG suddenly praised by Jing Yamo, Xia Xian was taken aback and somewhat flattered. She said, "Well, I just felt the rock was going to fall, so I rushed over without thinking much. It didn't really hurt that much." Xia Xian was afraid everyone would worry, so she emphasized that she was fine. Jing Yamo took out gauze and cut it to the appropriate size for the wound on Xia Xian's arm. He asked, "How did you know the rock was going to fall?" At the time of the accident, the three of them in the rockery weren't aware of the situation. However, those outside the rockery had a clear view. Su Ji and Zhao Nan were focused on opening the boxes, while Xia Xian was attentively accompanying Slowpoke with her back to the two. There was no way anyone would have noticed the change above their heads. Moreover, the stone didn't fall at that moment and made no sound. Yet, Xia Xian seemed to anticipate something, suddenly looking up at the stone and then rushing over. Xia Xian paused for a moment, not knowing why she had acted that way. It seemed she had heard a noise and subconsciously looked up. It could be her sixth sense. Teasing Jing Yamo, she said, "Maybe I have spider sense like Spider-Man." Jing Yamo chuckled and didn't say anything. After a moment of silence, he suddenly asked, "Have you ever bought my album?" "Huh?" Xia Xian's smile froze on her face. She pondered, why was he suddenly asking such a nonsensical question? Xia Xian had never been a fan of stars and didn't recognize many celebrities, so she didn't buy any albums. But she couldn't just tell him that she didn't listen to his songs. Xia Xian could only give a casual response, "I'm not really into music." Disappointment flickered in Jing Mo's eyes for a moment. He silently secured the gauze with adhesive tape, completing the bandaging. Jing Mo was extremely skilled at this process, and the bandaging was done neatly. Xia Xian joked, "Mr. Jing, if you weren't a star, you could have been a doctor." Jing Mo put away the first aid kit and calmly replied, "Getting injured during filming is common and practice makes perfect. I need to continue shooting, so I won't be able to take you back." After thanking Jing Mo, Xia Xian got out of the car and watched them leave. Somehow, she had a feeling that Jing Mo was upset. 9-0 comment vote send gift 0 comment 2 left. Xia Xian thought it must be her imagination. With Jing Mo's personality, Xia Xian believed that he couldn't possibly be upset just because she hadn't bought his album.